order. Madam Secretary, will you please call roll?
Commissioner Verino?
Here.
Commissioner Alderetti? Vice Chair Contreras-Leo?
Here.
Chair McLaughlin?
Here.
Commissioner Mendoza?
Here.
Commissioner Nguyen?
Here.
For the record, Commissioner Alderetti will not be in attendance tonight. Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you. Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Lynette, would you lead us? Thank you. We will now move on to public comments. Do any members of the public have any public comments for non-agenda items at this time? If you do so, please come up, fill out a card with the Secretary, and we will hear your comments. At this point in time, I have one card. It is Dale Helvig.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Dale Helvig, Park Santiago. You all know why I'm here, 2525, but that's really not why I'm here. Just wanted to say thank you for November 26th meeting. I thought it went well. And to wish you guys all a happy Christmas and New Year. And we'll see you in 2019. City staff too. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Dale. Does anyone else have any public comments on non-agendized item? Hearing none, public comments is closed. We'll move to the consent calendar. At this time, the Commission will consider the matters under the consent calendar. First item is, do we have a motion to approve? We don't have minutes from the last meeting. Do we have a motion to approve from the minutes of the last meeting?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 5-0 with one absent. At this point in time, do we have a motion to approve the excused absence of Eric Alderetti?
So move.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Eric Alderetti absent. At this time, we'll move on to the business calendar. This is the time and place to consider item number 1, General Plan Amendment number 2018-04, and the amendment application number 2018-07 for the annexation of a 25-acre county island at the northeast corner of 17th Street and Tustin Avenue. If you wish to address the Planning Commission, please file a request for the speaker to Secretary, and the comments will be limited to 3 minutes unless there's an extension granted by the Chair, and at this point in time it would be 3 minutes. Before we begin, is there any Commissioner that has anything to disclose at this time? Okay. Vince?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Planning Commissioners. This is an item that you saw back in October. For the benefit of a couple of you that were absent, I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick overview of it and kind of tell you why we're back here again. So as far as background on the annexation proposal here, we're looking to annex 25-acre county island at the northeast corner of 17th and Tustin Avenue. And there's a process that we have to go through in order to get the annexation in. And one of them is that the Planning Commission pre-zone and pre-general plan this annexed area. Whenever it does come into the city, then the zoning and general plan are already in place. So the item before you is a pre-annexation action for the zoning and general plan action. So a quick background on annexations themselves. Back in the 1990s, the state basically said that they want efficient services to provide it, and they want to find a way to get rid of all these little county islands that are spread throughout California. So they created these laws that affected properties of about 158 acres or less, plus some bigger ones. So for us, 25 acres falls under the 150 or less. And it basically said if you're a small island surrounded by a city, that the city needs to go back and annex that property, take it off the county's hands, and make it into part of the city territory there. So they had some laws that passed through, and that came about back in the 1990s. In 2000, we tried to do the annexation, but due to some quirks in state law, there was a voting, the neighbors or the people in that annexation island were able to vote on it, and they didn't want to move forward with the annexation at that time, so we kind of tabled it for a while. State law has been cleaned up and basically says any of these small islands, the voting ability of these neighbors is no longer available to them, that it's good public policy to have cities take over these islands, and they clean up the law to kind of prevent the delays in these occurring. So in 2017, there was a development project that came into that corner of 17th and Tustin. It's a Chick-fil-A and an In-N-Out Burgers, and they asked to go through the city, this county process. However, they need to get city sewer services. In order to do that, the only way we can provide it by law is to annex that property into Santa Ana. So here we are today with a request from developers to build a couple of projects on those corners and also to get sewer connections to the city, and therefore we're here asking for the annexation. So in June, this question was brought before our city council, and they said, yes, good idea. Staff moved forward with the annexation. In June, they said, go start the procedure. So we've started it, and one of the first steps is working with this body here to get the pre-zoning and pre-general plan done. So again, October 8th, it was before this body here. It got passed by a 3-2 vote. However, we realized at the end of the meeting that there was a little quirk in the state law that says if you're doing a general plan amendment, you have to have 4 votes. Since a few of the people that were here to speak on it left the meeting, we thought that we have to come back and the best thing to do is come back and go before this body and get a direction from you. So we're here again today to get a vote. We need 4 votes out of the 5 for approval to move forward. And if we don't, the other option is just recommend denial of it. But either way, either approve it or deny it, we'll be able to move forward to the city council for their action. There's also some questions back in October about the economic impact of the annexation. We had a study that was being done at that time, and the study is in draft form. It has been done, and what it basically says is that we'll lose around $90,000 a year on this annexation. We're looking to, in this annexation area, bring up the streets, sidewalks, lighting, trees, everything up to our current city standard. And when you apply all those costs involved, you're looking at about $90,000 loss per year with the site being vacant on the corner, those 3 acres. Now, when you factor in the In-N-Out Burger and the Chick-fil-A, that gets cut in half to around a $40,000 to $50,000 loss. Now, that's going to change again because, as you know, we had Measure X got passed, and that increased our sales tax revenue. And so our consultant's doing the numbers again to kind of figure that out, but just by logic with the higher sales tax, that number will shrink even further. Now, to help close that gap, what the city manager's office is doing is negotiating with the county right now for some funding. They're still in negotiations right now. That should be wrapped up in the next couple of months. But we're looking to try to get some money from the county to help mitigate the impacts that we're going to acquire from this property. So at the end of the day, it may be a small loss. We're not quite sure, but it's not going to be the $90,000 that was originally anticipated, which is the worst case scenario. So again, we're here before you here to take a revote on the general plan amendment and the zone change, which is again why I'm back here in front of you presenting this project back to you. So very quickly, why annexation? Well, basically, cities provide services better than the counties do. Counties are more regional services. Recently, we had the voting. They handle the voting for the county. They handle health care. They handle the jail services, and they handle the court systems. Cities do more the police, the code enforcement, and those types of small sewer and water services. So it's just more logical that we do it here as well because we are more efficient in delivery of services. And then also, it's right there next to the city of Santa Ana. It's surrounded by Santa Ana and the freeway, so it makes sense that it comes into Santa Ana. So the process, the city council kicked it off back in June by saying, yes, good idea, move forward staff. Here we are, going before you for the request for the rezone and redesignation of the general plan. Once that's done, we go to council next year. Council says, yes, good idea, move forward. We're turning an application to LAFCO. LAFCO takes about 3 or 4 months to do their process. So we're figuring sometime in probably March, April, May, LAFCO will say, yes, this annexation is approved. It's now part of the city boundaries. To refamiliarize yourselves with the site, here it is. It's almost 25 acres, just shy of that. Again, it's northeast corner, 17th and Tustin, a little over 3 acres, and that west side's been vacant forever. And then you have almost 49 houses, a couple of apartment projects, and about 30 different commercial businesses within that annexation area. Freeways to the right, 17th to the south, and then you got Santa Ana to the north there. And right now, most of the services are provided by the county, with the exception of water, which is handled by the city of Tustin, and they'll continue to provide water service out there. So again, what we need here by you tonight, a recommendation to pre-designate the general plan and a zoning as well. And what we're looking to do is to stay consistent. Whatever the county has, that's what we're recommending. So for the single-family houses, we're going to stay single-family, both our zoning and general plan. Commercial lots will be commercial. The apartments will be apartment zoning. So we're not looking to change anything or make any big ripples or any waves that impacts the properties. We just want to just recognize them as they are and just take them into the city's boundaries. And then here's the map. As you can see, the yellow is the single-family houses. The little darker yellow there, it says MR15. That's the apartments. And then the commercial there on the left and on the bottom there, that's the commercial zoning. And you'll see similar zoning to be similar. The residential yellow, which is single-family. The apartments will be a little higher density. And then you have commercial for the commercial uses. So again, we're not looking to make any major changes at all. We just want to accept the properties as they are into the city's boundaries. And with that, again, we're asking that you approve the general plan amendment here, 18.4, to pre-designate the parcels, and then recommend that we adopt an ordinance approving the zone change to pre-zone those parcels as well. And once we do that, we're looking to go to City Council probably in January. So that concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Vince. Does the commission have any questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Ken?
Could you tell us based on your economic analysis, we indicated that it will be this annexation of 24.7 acre of county land will create an annual net loss of approximately about $70,000 a year. What would benefit the city, or would, the economic reason or an advantage for the city to annexation this particular 24.78 acre?
Well, the advantage to us is that we're able to provide services to the community there. Cities, that's where our function is, provide services to local businesses, local residences. We provide police and fire much better than a county does. We realize that it could be a slight loss, but the development's going to occur in the corner. We anticipate that will kind of even it all out. So it's really just it's a benefit for them, for those people there to have a chance to have local representation, and also for us to provide services better than what the county does.
Okay. So there will be a long-term benefit for the city?
It'll be a long-term benefit.
Okay.
The development I mentioned is just two of the parcels are in the corner. There's still some vacant land up north that will be developed again in the future here once this annexation occurs, and that will also provide a benefit to the city through an increase in property taxes as well as any sales taxes generated.
Also, the retail or commercial in that particular area will have to pay 9.25% of new sales tax starting January 2019?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When do you anticipate the county will consider this resolution?
The county and the city have been negotiating for a couple of months now, and we're hoping probably next 2 months we'll have a resolution on the finances. We're getting close to a number. I don't know the number just yet. I've been told by the city manager's office that we're getting closer to a number. So the next couple of months we'll have that done. Then the city council will have to essentially get a property tax agreement with the county that has to go before the city council. So we figure all this will be wrapped up probably in late spring of this year, or next year, 2019.
Vince, is there any, is 2 fast food companies that are coming in right now to fill that area that's unoccupied. Is it only those 2 that can fill that pad, or is there other business that can come into that area also?
No, there's still room to the north of those 2. I believe it's Chick-fil-A on the corner, Peter? Yeah, Chick-fil-A in the corner.
It was Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out.
And the In-N-Out just be north of that, and then there's still another, maybe an acre or so that's available for development. I've heard everything from a car wash to just general retail to an office building, but nothing solid's been submitted in yet.
So there is some additional
There is some additional land. Yes, that's
fill
correct.
that area.
Yes.
Down the line.
All the way up to the old AAA building.
And I know at this point in time, based on the summary that was presented, the city was going to take care of the sewage and the septic tanks as they failed in the process. Is there any reason why we wouldn't necessarily plan something over the next couple, 2-3 years that would be one shot to take care of everything at the same time, so it would be a little more cost effective?
as far as all the, like the street
Just
sidewalks.
converting over to the system, converting over
Yeah,
to the...
the city's looking to, at our own cost, put in a whole sewer system there.
Right.
Right now, there's no sewers. We'll pay for it all. We'll find the funding, and all the way up to the city, to the property lines, essentially. So we're gonna absorb all that cost through grants and bonds and other special funding, and then all the residents would have to do would basically just go from the property line to their house, and we're not forcing them to do it. If their sewer septic tank fails, they can replace it. They can go to
Is that
sewer.
at the cost of the
up to
homeowner, or is it?
That'd be the cost of the homeowner, but we're not going to force them to do it once something happens to their property.
Okay.
They have at their own pace. So
So the main line's going to be put in, but
the
the
main line would be put in by the city.
hookup is
Correct.
optional,
Yes.
okay? Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication on this item?
We have not.
Okay. At this time, we will open the meeting to a public hearing on this item, number one. Does anybody wish to speak on item number one at this time? Hearing none, the public comment is closed, and we'll bring it back to the commission. Do we have a motion to make the determination of the...
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion. if
Yes.
possible. I would like to make a motion, recommend to the City Council to adopt a resolution approving General Plan Amendment 2018-04 for pre-designated property on General Plan Land Use Map, and adoption of ordinance approving amendment application number 2018-07 to pre-zone property to be consistent with the city zoning designations.
Thank you, Ken. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, and if I could just make just one quick comment. I
Sure.
appreciate that, I know I had concerns at the last meeting in regards to the fiscal impacts that the annexation was going to have, so I appreciate the information. It makes a world of difference to me when I'm making the decision. I think that for the most part, the amount of money that we're going to be investing in this is not going to be critical to the future of the city, so I'm going to be supporting the recommended action.
Thank you, Lynette. Cynthia?
I just want to piggyback. I had the same concerns that Commissioner Moreno did, and I just really want to appreciate the reaching out. I felt much more confident coming today and being prepared. So thank you very much.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. I think since we have to have the 4 vote, we'll do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Verino,
Yes.
Vice Chair Contreras-Leo,
Yes.
Chair McLaughlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Mendoza,
Yes.
Commissioner Nguyen.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion passes 5-0.
5-0. Eric Alderete is
Alderete.
absent. Thank you. This is the time and place to consider item number 2, zoning ordinance amendment number 2018-04 to amend various sections of Chapter 41 of the Santa Ana Municipal Code relating to R2 and townhouse standards, schools, citywide design guidelines, and French Park and Henniger Park, French Park SD19, Henniger Park SD40. Go ahead.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Plan Commission. This second item is for a zoning code amendment, otherwise known as zoning amendment number 2018-04. As you recall, last year and at the beginning of this year, we brought a series of code amendments to help streamline certain processes as well as update some of our outdated code sections. So the proposed amendments as part of these COA will follow those same goals. With that, again, just to recap the following amendments. First one is to require a CUP for schools in particular zones, as well as to modify the development standards for the two-family R2 and townhome standards, to require development project review for service stations, and to modify specific development number 19 and specific development number 40, which is French Park as well as Hettinger Park. With that, I'll go ahead and start with schools. So the reasoning why we're proposing this code amendment for schools is to pretty much make the review process consistent among all zoning codes. Currently, schools do require a conditional use permit in the R1, R2, and most of the residential zones. So the proposed amendment to require CUP will be consistent with that. In addition to that, it will require a more public input to go through the CUP process. Currently, since they are allowed by right, they don't have to go through the public hearing process. So just to give you an example, when we say when a use is allowed by right, it's like a mini market going into a commercial zone. They just go to the planning county and we verify all the development standards, and if they comply with that, therefore the project is then deemed complete and approved. So again, the proposed amendments is just to require a conditional use permit, which will have to be brought forward to you as an application, and the planning commission will be the body deciding whether or not to approve this particular use. Just to give you more or less a background as to why we're doing this, in a few months that have passed by, we received a couple of applications in particular for charter schools, and they've been a bit of a challenge in terms of analyzing traffic and some potential impacts to the neighboring vicinities, particularly to the residential zones. Because of that, we're proposing to require the conditional use permit just to create a more cohesive analysis as well as to allow for public input. Again, the amendment is to require all schools within all zoning districts to require CUP. Again, creates consistency amongst all zoning districts, and again, requires a public hearing for them. The following slide is more or less a comparison table of what other adjacent cities basically require for schools. For example, Irvine, for public schools, they're more or less exempt from that ordinance, but private schools do require conditional use permit. In Garden Grove, there is no distinguish between private schools, charter schools, or public schools, so all schools do require a conditional use permit. Same thing for Costa Mesa, Tustin, and Fountain Valley. So what we're proposing, it's not something out of the ordinary, but it's something that's consistent throughout most of the cities around here, but actually throughout most of Southern California as well. With that, I'll go ahead and move now to the second item, which are the amendments to two-family as well as the townhome standards. This particular item was brought up because we do have a lot of potential developers are interested in redeveloping some of these R2 properties for infill development, and these standards have not been updated since 1991. So the proposed modifications that we're proposing are pretty much to bring these standards up to date in terms of housing as well as economic development trends. And just to give you more an idea of what are the major alterations that are being proposed, again, this was included as part of your ordinance, but a lot of it is pretty much to simplify and clarify some of the language. The second item is to require a conditional use permit to allow 3-story townhomes. Currently, we only allow up to 2-story townhomes, maximum of 27 feet. So this proposal will allow an applicant to build a 3-story townhome. However, they do need to go through the application process of applying for a CUP, which will require the approval of this body. The third item is modifications to the existing parking requirements, and I'll get that into in the other slide. But more or less, the reasoning why we're proposing this is basically to create additional opportunities for low to medium density. So this is anywhere between 5 to 15 units per acre. So now let's speak about the parking requirements that are being changed. Currently, the code requires 2 parking spaces per unit, and it requires 2 parking spaces for guest parking. So a total of 4 parking spaces are required for a single-family home or a townhome in this case. So what staff is proposing is pretty much to modify this to go with a more contemporary approach where we're analyzing the parking ratio depending on the number of bedrooms. So if an applicant is proposing a 2-bedroom townhome, then the minimum requirement would be a 2-car garage. If they're providing a 3-bedroom townhome, then they're going to be required to provide 3 parking spaces. Anything over 3 bedrooms will require an additional 0.5 parking space per bedroom in excess of 3. and we are going to be requiring an additional guest parking of 0.5. Sorry about that. So in essence, if you compare it, if you have currently, let's say with our current code, if you're proposing a 4-bedroom townhome standards, the requirements are 4 parking spaces. With the proposed amendments for a 4-bedroom house, you're still going to be providing 4 parking spaces. So it kind of balances itself out, but we are being a little bit more lenient when it comes to 2 bedrooms. So just more or less to give you a comparison, we provided this table, and we pretty much looked at Costa Mesa and Irvine and kind of modify our development parking requirements based on that. But again, most of these surrounding cities are requiring parking based on the number of bedrooms. So there's nothing unique that we're doing here. It's just pretty much kind of seeing what's current and what housing developers are looking at in terms of incentivizing some of these developments. The third item is service stations. What we're basically proposing is to require development project review for all service stations. And the reason why we're requiring this is because service stations currently right now, depending on the zone they're in, they're allowed by right. And in most cases, they're up against single-family homes. So this proposed amendment would require them to go through the development project review process, which is an interagency thorough analysis, which gets reviewed by the Building Department, Public Works, Orange County Fire Authority, to assure that they're meeting all of our development standards as well as circulation. Again, so the amendment is just to require that development project review process, which is done administratively. And then the last proposed amendment is particularly to SD 19 as well as SD 40. And some of the issues is right now that we're encountering is there's an inconsistency for the review authority. Both these districts are historical districts that were established before the city's historic ordinance that was approved, which is Chapter 34 of the City Zoning Code, which regulates alterations to historical properties. So the proposed amendment is to basically authorize the Historic Research Commission as the authorizing body to review any modifications to the exterior of the building or the structures, and to require any conditional use permit or any variance application to go before the Planning Commission. And more or less, the rest of the amendments is just to make both documents consistent in terms of how they read and in terms of the process. So we're not making any changes to their design guidelines or any other criteria. It's just simply to make both documents consistent in terms of the language. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council adopt Zoning Ordinance Amendment number 20-2018-04, and feel free to answer any questions.
Does the Commission have any questions of staff?
Could you tell me again the parking requirement for the townhouses? I'm sorry, the screen is too small for us to read it, but I just want to clarify is that the 2-bedroom unit will require minimum 2 parking spaces, and 3-bedroom 3 parking spaces. Additional bedroom will be 0.05 spaces per bedroom. Is that correct?
That is correct, and an additional 0.5 for guest parking.
Right.
So a 2-bedroom will require to provide 2 parking spaces in an enclosed garage, and then 0.5 for guest parking.
And then the height requirement is not limited to 24 feet as the city normal.
That is correct. So currently, as mentioned, the R2 and townhome standards only allow for a maximum of 2 stories, which is 27 feet. What we're proposing is to require a conditional use permit, which will allow a developer to build 3 stories or 35 feet, subject to the approval of a conditional use permit before this body.
Thank you.
Beatrice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really like how you did the tables, for the summary of amendments. It really helps a lot. I'm a very visual person, so I really appreciate that. For code section 41-668 on page 2-3, you also mentioned it in your presentation that we have no review process for service stations. What would the formal review process look like?
So normally any project that's over 2,500 square feet has to go through the city's development project review application process, and that's pretty much a site plan review. So the applicant comes in, pretty much tells us the location of the building, and then they give us more or less an analysis of how many parking spaces they're required to provide and landscape. So that's being triggered for anything over 2,500 square feet. So for example, let's say we had a service station that was also proposing a mini market and a car wash, and all of that was exceeding 2,500 square feet, they will have to go through this process. What we're proposing to amend will require any new service stations, no matter of the square footage that's being proposed, to go through this process.
Okay, so any, okay.
Correct.
Got it, thank you.
Any other?
Just
Lynette?
Can we clarify what service station is? Is that just gas
So-
stations?
Gas
or-
stations, correct. Fueling stations. There was a comment with regards to the modernization of greenhouse gas emissions and other fuels for alternative resources, but yeah, it's service stations as of right now. So it could potentially be some green gas in the future, but same concept.
Jerry, a couple of questions I have. One is that when you go back and you look at the townhouse requirements for parking, and then you look at item number 4 on our docket this evening, the requirements for parking there are kind of in alignment with the harbor corridor. And so, you know, there seems to be a difference between what we have already approved for the harbor corridor and this particular proposal here. Can we explain why it's different?
So the harbor corridor, we have to take into context. When that particular document was developed and crafted, it took in mind to consideration the adjacency to proximity to transit lines. So that more or less is a transit-oriented development where the parking ratio is more or less assuming that most of the people are going to be walking to transit lines or using other modes of transportation. And when we looked at the townhome standards, we looked at it holistically because we do have a lot of R2 properties that are kind of scattered throughout most of the city. And that particular ratio wouldn't work here particularly because we do have some R2 properties that are abutting single-family homes. And we were just kind of mindful in terms of the context, and we're allowing for a decrease in parking. So more or less that was the rationale for that.
Okay, all right. And then changing subjects, going to the schools. So with the CUP, the boundaries for this is going to be the city of Santa Ana, correct?
Correct, citywide, yes.
So school districts that are within Santa Ana boundaries, like Tustin, like Garden Grove, they're going to be under the responsibility, or that they're going to be under the jurisdiction of the city, so it'll be a city CUP.
So just want to clarify that. So school districts can exempt themselves from local land use regulations.
Correct.
There's a formal process that they have to go through, and they still need to, by law, have to approach the city when they're trying to develop a new school. However, they can exempt themselves, so they won't be subject to this conditional use permit requirement.
The public schools and possibly the dependent charters.
So charter schools gets a little bit more complex. From our understanding and doing research, they could only exempt themselves if they're going to be utilizing the facilities of an existing public school.
Which there are some right now.
That's correct. So if that's the
There's also-
case, they can exempt themselves from this requirement.
So a dependent like Nova is a dependent charter.
So Nova Academy,
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the regulations considering the transit-oriented or SD 84 in downtown. I'm not sure if we require CUP in our downtown, but I believe there's certain design guidelines that prohibit them from certain locations.
But you're requiring a CUP for schools of that nature, so
Correct.
why would you exempt it because it's downtown?
So downtown, so when we looked at this, downtown, it's under SD 84. Harbor, as well as the Metro East or overlay zone, have certain design guidelines that kind of dictate the placement of these schools. So they already take into consideration traffic and as well as other circulation issues. But there are certain other requirements that those documents have. Just to give you more or less an example, most familiar with Innovate as well as River Springs that came before you guys a couple of months ago. Those particular schools will then, if, for example, if they applied under this particular amendment, will require conditional use permit.
But those are different in regards to how they're established from a charter perspective. I mean, there's a fine line there, but Innovate and the Springs, those two schools were not dependent charters; they were independent charters. So they're not under the jurisdiction of Santa Ana; they're under the jurisdiction of Orange County Department of Ed. But that makes them independent charters.
So I'm not too familiar with the dependent versus independent language, but from a charter perspective, at least from my understanding, maybe Lisa could clarify this, if they're dependent or independent, wouldn't really matter. They will have to require to go through the CUP process unless they're going to be occupying a public school facility.
The purpose of my questions, we're trying. I'm assuming that the purpose of this whole thing is for the safety of the students and the safety of the community that we're doing this. And so I'm just making sure that if we're going to cover the boundaries, we're going to set the boundaries for this, at least we make sure we understand from a planning perspective what the boundary, what's here in this city at this point in time. Because I don't think we do. I honestly don't think we do. I think there's still some questions as to where the boundaries are and what each of these different entities exists, like Magnolia, which is, down on First Street. That's a pay-for-profit charter school. It's
Correct.
a whole different situation.
Just to clarify, some of these schools are pre-existing, so they wouldn't be subject to these new changes.
So anything that's been pre-existing is going to be exempt from this
They're
process?
going to be considered non-conforming, so there's some limitations that they're going to have to abide by. For example, let's say, Nova Academy is not a good example, but let's just throw in Innovate. If for some reason they want to come in and now do an expansion, now that we have a conditional use permit, we could look at the previous entitlements and look at them. Oh, well, you don't have a conditional use permit, so here are the list of limitations that you have. If you want to exceed these limitations, then now you need to apply for a conditional use permit.
Did I miss something in the documentation with regards to this being considered to be you're exempting what was already existing?
We didn't get into that language because anything that we do today doesn't really affect pre-existing businesses that were legally established. This will only affect new schools that are trying to build a new structure in a C1 zone.
Okay, well, that wasn't clear. So, there's a lot that's already in existence for sure.
Right.
But it wasn't defined. Ignore those and move on to the new ones.
Correct. Yeah, we didn't specify the whole non-conforming situation, but yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Thank you, Jerry. Okay. Have we received any written communication on this item, Madam Secretary?
We have not.
Thank you. At this point in time, we'll open the public hearing. The public hearing is now open for anyone who'd like to speak on item number 2. Hearing none, public hearing will be closed at this time. We'll bring it back to the commission. Do I have a motion to make a determination of the consistency of the general plan?
I'll move that we recommend that the City Council adopt an ordinance approving zoning ordinance amendment number 2018-04 to amend several sections of Chapter 41 of the Santa Ana Municipal Code and sections of specific development number 19 and specific development number 40.
I second.
Second. Thank you, Beatrice. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's 5-0 with Eric already absent. This is the time and place to consider item number 3, conditional use permit number 2018-22 to modify the existing conditional use permit to allow the existing restaurant to expand into an adjacent tenant space for the property located at 2700 West Westminster Avenue, Unit E. Before we begin, does any commissioners have anything that they want to disclose at this time? Okay. Ivan, it's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. As you stated, before you is an application for an modification to an existing CUP for Restaurant Acapulco No. 2, located at 2709 Westminster Avenue, currently under Unit D, which is proposing to expand into Unit E. And as I mentioned in the application and staff report indicate, this is a request to sell the alcoholic beverages that are currently approved, but in an expanded portion of the restaurant. A little bit of the site description. It actually is really close to the city boundary on the west end, next to Garden Grove. So highlighted property lines there indicate the building and the property itself adjacent to Westminster. And then there is a vertical line that dictates city of Garden Grove to the west and city of Santa Ana to the east. It's currently zoned C1 and is general commercial, general plan designation, surrounded by single family and commercial uses throughout. And what I've provided for you here is in red is the current location, Unit E, and to the right is Unit D, which is the location at which they want to expand into. And this slide will show the proposed floor plan once everything is finalized. The red lines indicate the location of storage for alcohol and display, which sum up to approximately 56 square feet, which is less than the 5% that is allowed per code. And as you can see, the expansion portion, half of that would be for a dining area, and the other half would be for storage. So a little bit of the analysis. It has been a sit-down casual restaurant since 1988. Since 1986, alcohol has been offered at this restaurant operation since 1988. There's been several restaurant businesses in operation. But in 2012, the existing restaurant that is before you this evening was approved for a full alcohol license for the tenant space at Unit E. But again, it will continue to provide the same service and the same amenities to residents and visitors. We have added conditions of approval similar to situations before to make sure that if they are offering entertainment that is concurrent with the CUP application. And then also the tenant improvement plans have been submitted to the city in order to get the permits and build out there. So with that concludes my presentation. Staff recommends that you approve conditional use permit 2018-22 as conditioned. I am happy to answer any questions, and the representative is here, the applicant, to answer any additional questions as well.
Does the commission have any questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Okay.
Could you tell me, since 1912, is where the restaurant got their food license for beer and wine and spirit? Is there any incident, any police report during that time still now?
Nothing was indicated through the police report. I wish Bill McGovern was here to confirm that, but there wasn't anything outstanding.
Okay, thank you.
Beatrice?
Yes, I don't see the conditions for the permit in this packet, but I did see it in the one we received by email, or the one on the website.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the conditions is that entertainment permit on file needs to be provided. Is it on there? Okay, I'm sorry. So why was that a condition? Did you hear that they were providing entertainment, or?
No, I think previous applications that have come before you at this body, it's always been similar to whether or not they have an entertainment permit already in place. Are they proposing to do one? And the majority of those have been conditioned to release the license not until they have approval of an entertainment permit. And so this condition was added to facilitate your review of the application and to guarantee that as the approval of this modification to the CUP, that they will always have an approved entertainment permit on file.
And you think the applicant is okay with that, adding that condition?
I didn't have any issues. I didn't hear anything from that. And they do have a current entertainment permit that was approved earlier this year.
Great, okay, thank you.
The only thing I did see on any concern was some of the construction had already started before the permits had been released?
Yeah, so unfortunately, when we received the application, we weren't aware of the construction being completed. It was only after a site visit by staff that we were aware that the construction has already been permitted, and that was placed in the staff report prior to printing. So as any application that we receive, if there's already construction, we still require that they go through the formal process of permits and inspections. And so that's why the condition here is, the number one condition on the conditions of approval is to make sure that and guarantee that all the permits are issued, finalized, and inspected.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? Thanks, Ivan.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication on this item?
We have not.
Would the applicant, are you the applicant? Are you the applicant? Would the applicant like to speak on this item? No? Okay. We'll now open it for public hearing. I have one card here. Emma Avalos? Yes. Okay.
I live behind the...
Can you take the microphone and bring it down to you?
Right here? My name is Emma Avalos, and my house is behind the restaurant that they're building. And I don't have no problems with the restaurant, but there's a lot of people drinking like outside of the store or the restaurant. I have called the police several times, and besides, there's another cafe, like I will say it's like a Chinese cafe, and they're gambling. I believe they sell drugs too. And like I said, I called the police twice. They've been there, and so far they haven't. They said that they're checking on it, that they're investigating, and I don't have no problems with the restaurant. I just want to make sure that they're going to have more, I don't know, the police work, I don't know, just be around just to make sure that no loitering. And I wish they could do something about the cafe that they're selling drugs.
Okay.
I mean, and gambling. I don't think that that's permitted, but like I said, when I called the police, they said it's illegal, they know about it, they're investigating, they're building a case. But I mean, it's been a few months, and I wish they could do something.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Good input. Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to speak while public comments are open? Hearing none, we'll close public comments and we'll bring it back to the commission. Do I have a motion to determine... What? Okay. Do I have a motion to make a determination of the consistency of the general plan, and do I have a second? Do I have a motion on this item?
A motion to adopt resolution approving conditional use permit 2018-22 as conditioned.
I second.
Second. Okay. Any discussion?
I just wanted to ask that if someone on city staff could connect the speaker with code enforcement. I know that there's been some internet cafe business in the recently, so I don't know if that's one of the internet cafes. It's on their list, but if not, if someone could get her some information.
We'll definitely do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Any other comments? With that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Eric Alderani absent. Thank you. This is the time and place to consider item number 4, tentative track map for 2018-04 to allow the construction of 8 two-story townhouse units as individual condominiums located at 3417 West 5th Street. Ivan's back.
Hello again, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. This application before you is, it's a not a very common application, and I'll walk you through this, but the application before you this evening is actually for the tentative map, not for the development, and I did want to specify that for you. So the property is located at 3417 and 3425 West 5th Street. The connection street there is Jackson. And as I stated, this is for a development of a 8-unit, 2-story tuck-under development, for a townhome style on a vacant lot. There'll be 2 separate buildings. Each one of those buildings will have 4 units, and each one of the units will have a 2-car garage underneath the living space. Construction of the site is permitted by right. It is permitted under the Harbor Mixed-Use Transit Corridor. So the application before you this evening is for the tentative tract map to be able to sell these as condominiums. And so what I've highlighted here, and as you can see towards the top right of the image, is Willowick. You'll see 5th Street cross horizontally and Jackson just to the west. And the zoning for this, as I stated, is in our Harbor Mixed-Use Transit Corridor, but it's also in the Neighborhood Transitional Subzone. And that allowed for the development of the site the way I will show you momentarily. The general plan designation is urban neighborhood, and it is surrounded by a lot of residential, but a lot of existing non-conforming commercial type uses that you'll see along 5th Street. This is a site photo looking directly northeast of the site. I did want to mention, and as I stated in the staff report, that there is a billboard which will be removed as part of the development of the site. And this is a first floor plan, site plan image. As you can see, there is a driveway that intersects the property and then drives south to exit onto 5th Street. Both buildings will have four units as I specified, and the garages will be accessed through the driveway. To the north of the site, there's also common area, kind of a paved walkway that was designed for outdoor activities. The trash enclosure will be located just as you exit on 5th, which would facilitate all the public works accessibility to the trash enclosure there. These are some elevations. As you can see on the top image, it'll be from 5th Street looking north. And then the other image will be the one on Jackson Street. As you can see, there's a vehicle indicating where the garage locations would be and the access point to the driveway. This is the image of a north elevation where you'll see the entrance to the 4 units on the north building. And then just another image of how the garages were designed for the entire development there. The applicant also provided a rendering, which is the exact same sort of point where we saw the image of the site, looking northeast. And so some of the design improvements that we've required through this is to have connection to the streets. So you'll see a lot of these entranceways facing the street, so there's interaction there. And a little bit about this project. It is proposed to meet all the Harbor Mixed-Use Transit Corridor development standards, design standards, and it is consistent with the Neighborhood Transitional Zone. The project is also consistent with the general plan, and it will provide additional housing opportunities, and as well as provide almost like an example of what could be built on properties like these. This development site and the property will be one of the first that is developed under the harbor plan on 5th Street. So assuming that this is a good example, more to follow. And with that, staff concludes the presentation and is recommending that the Planning Commission approve tentative tract map number 2018-4 as conditioned. The applicant is here, as well as I'm available to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Does the commission have any questions of Ivan?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I can see the project have a total of 8 units and also add about the bedroom, if 31 bedroom altogether. So how many parking spaces altogether for the project for a total 8 unit?
So altogether, on-site parking is 2 per unit inside the garage as required by the Neighborhood Transitional Subzone. Right. One thing to mention is that this subzone actually allows, and through the harbor plan, allows the guest parking to be off-site. So you'll only see 2 parking spaces per unit inside their garages, but the additional 0.25 that is required per unit, which totals a number of 2 guest parking spaces, will be off-site, so on the street.
On the street.
Yes.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, Ivan, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Before I go on, does any of the commissioners have anything to disclose on this item? No? Okay, Madam Secretary, have we received any correspondence on this?
We have not.
Okay. Would the applicant at this time like to speak?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and a member of the Commissioner. My name is Lap Nguyen from Architecture Office, and I'm designer of the project. I represent the owner and to answer any question about the project.
Okay.
If-
Does the Commission have any questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. We'll now open it for public hearing. At this point in time, does anyone want to make any comments during the public hearing on item number 4? Hearing none, public comments is closed. We'll bring it back to the commission. Do I have a motion on this item?
Mr. Chairman?
Beatrice?
I would like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving tentative track map number 2018-4 as conditioned.
A second? Second, Ken? Cynthia, do you have a? Okay. Lynette?
I just want to make a comment. In the city, there is a very obvious need for housing, and that area is in very much dire need of some improvements. So I appreciate the applicant coming in and putting this beautiful new housing project in that area. I do have some concerns about parking. The area is dense, but it meets all of the parking requirements. So guests are just going to have to fight with the neighbors for parking. Yeah, use Uber. Yeah, there you go.
Ken?
Yeah. I do personally like the design of the project. I like to see the pretty sizable unit and 4-bedroom, 3-bath. That's plenty of space. The only thing is that I do have a little concern of the parking that were provided for unit, and the guests have to park in the street. But again, that's part of the North Harbor Pacific Plan. That's the reason why I support the project.
Okay. Before we lose our birthday girl. Any other comments from the commission? Hearing none, we will take a vote at this time. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Eric already absent. Thank you. We'll now move on to comments. Does staff have any comments at this
Yes.
point?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before, I wanted to say happy holidays to the Planning Commission, as we won't have a second meeting this year. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. The next meeting of our regular Planning Commission will be on January 14th. And our goal is to provide the Planning Commission with a full staff report for the agenda items on that night before we leave for the holidays. The city, I'm not sure if you're aware, will be closing down during the week of Christmas and New Year. So the last day for staff is going to be on the 21st of December. So our goal is to get you the Planning Commission agenda for that meeting before we leave for the holidays. The other message I'd like to request is that at the previous workshop, we provided a USB with all the information regarding the 2525 North Main project. As I mentioned, our goal is to deliver a staff report to you by the 21st. So if you have any comments or questions that you'd like to send to us before then, that would be great. Any comments or question that comes after that, we will provide as a supplement to the January 14th report, that week, so for that night. With that, I'd like to say happy holidays.
Okay. Candia?
Yes, I would just like to wish you happy holidays as well, and to thank Beatrice for her service on the Planning Commission. We will miss you. Thank you very much, and we will miss you.
Thank you.
Any other staff comments at this time? Okay. Cynthia, go ahead.
I'd like to thank staff for everyone that's here and that was part of the little holiday gathering. That's always nice to be able to get together and let our hair down and just talk about real life stuff, you know? So it was very nice. I appreciate it. And happy holidays to you guys and your families.
Ken?
Same thing. I would like to echo Cynthia on that too. Thank you for a wonderful, little short but very nice the holiday treat that the staff will provide to us. I came for that little party just because Vincent Meatball. Was that right? I would like to have little requests.
You want a recipe? Is that what you're looking for?
I wish. They have little requests if possible. If would like possible, could have a copy of the staff PowerPoint presentation and print it so it'll be available to us as commissioners. We read because quite difficult to read the monitor. It's not quite clearly, and also hard to read on screen. It'd be nice if we can have a print copy of PowerPoint presentation in front of, part of a package so we can follow the staff presentation better. I would like to say farewell to Beatrice and Lynette. We both will be missed. Definitely we'll see the very dedicated commissioner. Definitely we'll see you around in the city activity. And also very lastly, would like to wish everybody have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. See you on January 14th.
Beatrice?
So before I say thank you and goodbyes,
don't cry.
I'm very visual when I read some of these things, and I remember certain things. So for the item number 1, the general plan amendment, the annexation, I know the chairman asked if there were any written comments, and there weren't none on this hearing. But in the past, there have been. So I think it would be a good idea if we add even the ones from the past, because I don't know if you remember, but this is the 3rd time we see this, right? The first time I read it, I couldn't make the meeting. The second time, I didn't make the meeting. I'm sorry. The first time, I did make the meeting. Anyway, the point is, it's the third time we see this, but I didn't see the comments that I saw in the first one. So I think it'd be a good idea if we add the comments even in the final one. You know what I'm saying? So that's just an idea. And the other thing that I really liked was that under the table 2, under operational standards, I think it would be a good idea if we add in there whether they have an entertainment permit or not. That way we could also visually see it. I saw it on the condition, but I think if we saw that in here, I think a good idea for us to visually see. So that's pretty much it. It's been a pleasure to serve with these commissioners. Mark, you've done a great job as a chair. I'm going to miss you guys, but I will see you guys at the city council meetings, or like Ken said, around the meetings. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrice. I'll just try to keep it short here. First of all, thank you, staff, for putting on the get-together earlier, the holiday party. It was great. Appreciate doing what you did. Also, I think we need to look at some of the suggestions that have been brought forth. I think some of them are good suggestions, and I think one of the things that has been a challenge is the presentations. And we understand that they're sometimes at last-minute type situations, but at least to get a copy to be able to follow along does make it a lot easier for us to do. It's not that Ken and I are getting older, but we are, and sometimes you can't see the screen very well. All right, well, you're not getting old. I'm not going to let you get away with that one. So, but I would like to just see us try to do some things to help us out a little bit more with regards to that, and I think it'll be a big plus. I think Beatrice's comments are also valid comments. I am a little concerned as to January 14th because, with Beatrice not here, and we've already lost one more commissioner, we're down to 5 commissioners. And I'm not sure that between now and the 14th, we're going to be able to say that we'll have 5 commissioners or 6 commissioners or 7 commissioners. The likelihood is it's not going to happen. So we might have to look at some things with regards to that and consider certain aspects when trying to move forward with the item that's going to be there, which is, bigger than a gorilla at this point in time, 2525 Main Street. And we're going to have to figure out how we can approach that a little bit more effectively. So if there's any suggestions, I clearly would like to have suggestions from, staff or anybody else that would say how we're going to be able to handle that situation, because it is going to be a challenge with 4 or 5 commissioners. And it's something we're going to see a tough situation on all commissions between now and probably March or February or March is going to be the time frame when things are settled in a little bit more than what they are today. So give it some thought. I'd like to talk about how we can do something to make sure we cover this and do it the right way. Did you want to say something, Min?
I just want to maybe get a little bit more direction in terms of what are you seeking in terms of the ability to have more information or the hearing process be conducted in a certain manner.
I don't have the. Did you want to say, Ken?
Yeah, I think it's not fair for incoming commissioner, like new appointed commissioner, to get a full understanding of the project. To my opinion, the project quite complex and quite controversial, and a lot of objection from residents and all that stuff. Now, different. The information that you provide to us on the USB is very helpful. I mean, I spent like 3-4 hours on it, and I went to the information provided on that USB. But again, the incoming new commissioner will be quite a challenge and difficult for them to make the right decision. If possible, I would like possible to postpone it later, maybe February or March. I don't know, maybe that, so the incoming commissioner will have better understanding of the project or something. I don't think that would be fair for new commissioner nor the applicant. That my my opinion.
Okay.
I just want to say I think that's what they wanted. A lot of the people that were here wanted the new council to vote on it, because what we do as commissioners is we do a recommendation. Right. But the majority of them said we want the new council to vote on it for whatever reason. So I don't really think it's unfair, because it is just a recommendation. I don't know if it's fair to both sides to just keep pushing it. I mean, it's just my opinion.
Cynthia?
I think that with the new incoming council, I think the new council would like their positions reflected as well through their planning commissioners that they appoint. So I think to all be up to date, that's something truly that needs to be looked at. I don't know if all commissioners, the other 2 will already be sworn in with enough time or not. If they're not, is it the appropriate thing to wait to get everybody up to speed, including the new council members? So, as you know, we're here representing our community, but also our council members. So, I think that to take all that into perspective would be really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I just see the challenge is that you've got 3 new council members who have to select their commissioners, and they're going to get sworn in tomorrow. Probably they won't meet on the 18th, unless that's going to definitely, not the 18th, but whenever they're scheduled to meet at the end of the year. They probably won't be meeting. They haven't done it in the last 3 or 4 years to begin with. And with the city shutting down between the holidays, I don't see that happening. So the earliest that we can even see people come on the commission would probably be February, because they'll have a meeting in January where they may present some of the commissioners at that point in time, may not. And then they have a certain time period to come on board. So, I mean, I'm just trying to look at the practical side of it. I think in part we were thinking people were going to transition and stay on board until, but I know Beatrice is leaving and Roman left, so we're down. So, anyway, enough said on that. I think we all have our feelings and concerns about it. We just need to work on it. Having said that, hope everybody has a great holiday. Merry Christmas, great New Year's, and enjoy your vacation time between Christmas and New Year's. Everybody can have fun. And thank you very much for all your work and support this year, and we'll go hit next year and have fun, I think. Take care.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned. I did.